Dear Lord, as we come to you, God, at this time, Lord, this moment, each moment that we have here together is yours. So I just pray that we will put aside all the things that come later and stay focused now in your word, how it relates to each one of us personally. So God, once again, we give you these moments. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen. We are in the final week of a series, and we're talking about joy and peace and fulfillment. And over the last 2 weeks, we've kind of talked about what's robbed us of that and started down the process of some things that we can do so that we can gain those things back. And what I want to share with you is that it's not that difficult. And yet, because of our society in which we live, this rich, blessed society, many times it becomes difficult because so many other things get in the way. Let's go back. We're going to look at Romans 8:28, which is the first verse that we looked at for the first week. And in that week, we found out that, you know what, there's a lot of things. It says we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who've been called according to His purpose. And so what we learned through that time is that the devil will step in and try to turn things on. So it'll take away our time. It will mess with our treasures. It will mess with the areas that we're talented in to the point that we don't use those. But what the devil means for evil, God can turn into good. For all those, for all things, God works through that according to His purpose. And that's the step that we're trying to take in this series. And then the next week we took a look, and we go here, this is Romans 12. Verse 1, it says, therefore. And anytime we see therefore, we stop saying, what is that therefore? It says, I urge you. So it's one of those things that it's not a command, but he's really trying to step back and go, listen, this is really, really, really important. So pay attention. So I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And then in verse 2, it tells us this. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we talk about when it comes to conforming, we tend to go as the temperature goes. So if it's 90 degrees outside, we'll wear a tank top. If it's 40 degrees outside, we're going to put a coat on. And so we tend to go to whatever the thermometer, or whatever the temperature is. That's the word I'm looking for. So what the thermometer says, whatever the temperature is, we tend to go according to that. And we all do that. Hey, what's it going to be like today? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? Do I need to put a coat on? Do we not need to put a coat on? And that's what we tend to do when we conform to the world. But instead, we want to be the thermostat. We want to be transformed from the inside out according to what God teaches us. And when we're the thermostat, when it's 95 degrees outside, I'm staying at 71. I might go to 72 because I might get freaked out a little bit, but I'm going to stay in that 71 range. Hey, listen, it's 40 degrees outside. That's fine. But I'm going to stay at 68, 69, 70 once again. I'm going to choose to stay level and stay even through this time because this is what God has me doing. And I'm going to stay as that thermostat. So we gave a couple of ways to do that. How do we do that? We need to make room for change in our lives to allow God to make those changes. We then need to check our personal values and really take a look at what it is that's the most important. And I asked you last week, take 5 things. What are 5 values that you have? And to focus on those values throughout the week. And the last thing is, and this is probably the toughest part, and what we come to is we realize we need to get rid of some things. There's some things that we have in our lives. There may be some relationships that we have in our lives. There may be some choices that we make in our lives that we truly need to get rid of. And so even though it's fall, it was time for us to do our spring cleaning. And spring cleaning was something that was done by the entire family. They all came together and they went through the entire house to try and find any yeast that would be in the house and get rid of it. Because that yeast is what causes things to rise. And in Old Testament values, it was one of those things that it put that yeast and the things that cause rise ahead of God. So we wanted to get rid of it. That's what the spring cleaning was all about. But it was also meant to not do alone. We have others with us, or we should have others around us. Family, friends, people that are close to us that can help us to make those decisions. People that we can turn to, people that love the Lord, that love us no matter what, that have our best interests at heart. And here's the amazing thing. Sometimes these things that we need to get rid of may not be a person. Sometimes it may not be a choice. Sometimes it may be the very thing that's keeping us from God is the thing that's taking so much of our attention and we don't even realize it. And as many times it is a thing that does that. And so for each one of us, it's something different. Whether it's a person, whether it's a place, or whether it's a thing, there's something that's taking us away from God. And so we've got to make room for that change. We've got to make that spring training, we've got to check those personal values, which leads us to today. And this is the final week because I need to know that at the end of the rainbow, there's some kind of equation that I can remember that is going to bring that joy and that peace and that fulfillment. That joy and that peace and that fulfillment. And what you're going to learn through today is there is an equation. Do you want the equation now or do you want to wait to the end? Who wants the equation now? Okay, now if we do that, then everyone just gets to head out for the day. See, but that's our society, right? Give it to me now, I gotta have it now, I gotta have it now. Here's the equation. You ready? No, I'm gonna wait till the very end. Alright? Because we need to get there to get to that point. So here we go. So 2 nights ago, the ladies had a retreat. And the retreat was at Round Lake, which, of course, I had to ask Becca, I wonder if the lake is actually round. And I forgot to go look at Google Earth, but I'm assuming the lake is actually round, or it was round at one point, which is why they call it this. And so, before they left, one of the gals was, God bless you, one of the gals that was going on the trip was stopped by the house, and they were heading out together. And so, this is probably not the best time, but I'm a husband, and so I'm asking her all the questions. Do you have this? Yes. 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 But it's probably kind of frustrating as well because they're going to pick someone else up, and they're going to pick someone else up as they're heading on the road. And so I'm asking all these questions. We got it, we got it, we got it, we got it, we got it. Now, whenever that happens, no matter what, happens every single time. Does that mean they had everything? No, they forgot something. And so the thing that they forgot, I didn't know until I was on the way. I was taking my kids to go to see a young man play football, and we were going to spend some time with his family, so we went up to see football, and it was Northwest and CBC, we were playing one another. We knew we'd see all kinds of different people, say hello and all that, which was great. On the way there, I get the call. Honey, I need you to do me a really big favor. And immediately I went to, she forgot something. And I was asking all the questions. And so I said, okay, what'd you forget? And so she tells me, I forgot these brochures. And I'm like, please don't tell me you do tonight because I already scheduled to be with this family. We're going to be there. She's like, I just need for tomorrow morning. I'm like, oh, it's not a problem. We'll just come down after the game. So I could have stopped there. And I probably, quite frankly, as a husband, I should have stopped there. But instead, I did what probably any husband would do on the phone. Not necessarily face-to-face, but on the phone. I'm like, well, but didn't I remind you about those things? And didn't we talk about those things? Yeah, but, and here's the thing, but you were stressing me out. You were totally stressing me out. I had to be there, I had to get all this stuff, I had to do all these things, and you were totally stressing me out. So, the next thing I could have said was, oh, so it's my fault. But I didn't. I just let it drop, because we already know it's her fault. Right? So the two of us don't need to have that discussion. Let's 2-1, this is our fault. This is biblical. It happens to all of us. We go in so many different directions. There are things that happen. It's up to us, the other person, the other spouse, the other person in the relationship, whether or not they're willing to help out. And so it was my choice as to whether or not I want to be willing to help out. It didn't matter that she forgot these things. It mattered more that they would have this for everyone was there. And so, no big deal. It happens. It's like, okay, we're going to get those later, after the game. So the game we go to, most high school football games, they start at 7, they get over about 9:15, 9:20. Oh my goodness, this game was the longest game known to man. Like every other play, someone was cramping, and you see them out in the field with their leg up, and the trainer coming out. So the game didn't end until after 10 o'clock. And this is like, I don't know, however long of a drive. So we come here, me and Becca, and we have to make copies first because our printer ran out of ink, and so we only had like 17 copies, and they needed 20-some copies. So we came by here first, made the copies, and then we started on our little trek to Round Lake. Well, from the church, it gives you one direction. From my house, it's something different. But on the way there, it was like all the back roads. And it was on one of those nights to where it was really hot in the day, but a little cooler nights, so now all the fog and stuff is setting in. You go by cornfields, and we got out so far that at one point that the GPS said, sorry, John, but I don't know where we are right now. And I'd never heard that before. So it didn't actually say that. That's what I heard in my mind. So it kept saying, recalibrating, recalibrating, recalibrating. So we turned down this road, and when we turned down this last road, there were no stripes on the road. There was just a cornfield over here, and it was getting darker and darker, and then there was a field over here. So now, for me, that says it's fun time. So, Becca wants to have some songs on. We're going to sing these songs, and she picked the fine Christian band, the Dixie Chicks. And so as we're going down and wailing to the Dixie Chicks, I see this kind of barn thing off to the side, and it looked like one of those areas that'd be a great place to film a horror movie. So I said to Becca, did you see that guy? She said, what? I go, he was dragging something. get an axe. Is that blood coming off the axe? And she's looking, she's like, Dad, stop it, stop it. So every chance we had, we would go through fog, we would come out of fog. We'd go through fog, we'd come out of fog. And I'd freak her out a little bit. And so I had never been to this camp before. When we finally got to where we were at, as we pulled in, we come down and there's the lake. And I can't tell if it's round, but it's got all the stuff going across, the mist and all that. And it was kind of creepy. But it was kind of cool. And so Deanna gave us directions, and we drove where we were supposed to go. We drove all the way through the camp and missed her completely. So we had to turn around, we recalibrated, came back, and we found where we were at. And so as we went up to the top of the hill to bring these brochures, Deanna's like, hey, come on inside, come on inside. Now, when people do this to you, it's just a warning. You got to figure something's going to happen, right? So I figured, she was like, just come inside and get some cookies. And my thought, if you wanted to bring me cookies, you'd have just brought me cookies. So we go walking in, and their whole thing was they were going to scare us, which, props to them. That's what I would do as well. I mean, if you have an opportunity to scare them, I would have had them all the way through the campground. I'd have them throw things, run by, hit the car, and then keep running, all that stuff. Okay? They just didn't think this through. This is the difference between guys and girls, right? One of my buddies is coming with a hockey mask and an axe, and I'm forgetting those brochures on purpose. Right? We're having some fun. So we walk in, and as we walk in, there's the cookies sitting on the table, you know? And we're kind of looking around, and all of a sudden, that guy's like, hey, what's that person doing there? What's that person doing there? And I look, and I see Tamar, and Tamar is in plain view. This is a wall. And Tamar's leaning up against the wall like this. She's going. Like, I'm not going to see her. And I'm like, Tamar, why are you leaning up against the wall? And then at this point, that's when everyone jumped out and go, ah! Nobody jumped. It was fun. And they were like, well, we were supposed to scare you. Well, I hate to break it, but no one scared us. But we did get some free cookies. But it was so nice to go out to see them, and they were all like, oh, thanks for bringing the person. None of that mattered. It was just one of those things where we had the opportunity to help one another. And here were these gals, we're going to times it again, who made this decision to come together, to be with one another, and to grow with one another, according to what God teaches, and according to God's Word. Now, was it a deep theological discussion that went through for 16 and 18 hours? It's not always about that. Sometimes it's about having that time together. Sometimes it's about knowing what God's Word and how it speaks to us at this time in our life. Sometimes it's about making this change and stopping us for just enough time so that we can come together and enjoy that time together as ladies, as couples, as whatever it might be. God sets that time aside if we so choose to be a part of it. They just chose to be a part of it. And in their case, it just came with a lot of food. So that was a good move as well. So for each one of us, what are the things that God is showing you? And where is He showing you? And how is it then that we can set that time aside if we're going to find His joy, His peace, and His fulfillment? Because at that time, from that Friday to that Saturday day, I'm sure you could go to each one of the ladies that had the time there, and they could say, you know what? I didn't know if I should go at first, but I got to meet this other lady, and wow, she's really a special gal. And I didn't know this about her, and I would have never known this had I not taken that time outside of church to get to know her. We had this fear of, oh my goodness, what if people look at me and, what if my pajamas aren't the nicest, or what if I bring the wrong kind of food, or whatever it might be. There's always something that stops us in our tracks from getting to know one another, and that one another that we get to know might be the person that helps us with our faith to take a step closer to God. But we got to schedule it. And we got to choose to have that time. And we got to make a decision of whether or not that's important as part of our values. So how is it that we do that? Does the Scripture give us direction on doing that so that we can find that joy and find that peace and have that fulfillment in our everyday life? Because here's the thing, John, is what you're going to say to me, and I understand this. You don't live my life. Your kids are grown. My kids are young. Your kids are still in the home. My kids are gone. You have a spouse. I don't have a spouse. You haven't had the phone calls I've had. You're right. We all have different walks. Every single one of us. We don't know what it is that's coming. But here's the thing. Each one of us is going to be slowed down at some point. It's going to happen. We don't know when it's coming, and we're not sure how it's coming, but something is going to happen that is going to slow us down and make us hit that pause button, and we're going to really take a look at what it is that's the most important things in our life. Just yesterday, and I'm going to share with you that the newest addition to our church family was born. I hope I say this right, Johnny A. Yurchuk. So Johnny and Caitlin had their baby. Isn't that exciting? Just a few weeks previous to that, the reason her name is Johnny A. is because Caitlin's grandmother, who everyone called A, passed away. So they put that A in her name as a reminder. They slowed down. They had to stop. They had no choice. Having this baby, they slowed down. They're stopping. I'm going to visit them today after the service. If she's up for it. If she's not, I'll go see her when the time comes to go see her at home. This is going to happen, folks. So either it's going to happen in life, or you're going to make the choice, and I'm going to choose to find that joy and that peace and that fulfillment. So how do we do that? John chapter 15, starting at verse 4. It shares this, and just so you know, Jesus is having a discussion. He's talking about the vine and the branches. And I'm just going to pull this verse out separately. Normally you would teach us in a whole section, but I want to pull this one verse out. It says, remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Now that word remain in other versions is abide. And when it says abide, it means literally live with. So my question to you and the question for me is, do I live in such a way that Jesus is living with me? Do I live in such a way that I take Jesus to work with me? Do I live in such a way that people can see through my actions that the Holy Spirit is prevalent in my life? Do I live that way in the schools? Do I live that way in the extracurricular activities? Do I live that way when I'm cheering for my favorite team? Or when I'm tailgating? Or when I'm at a game? Or when I'm on the street? Do I live that way in my work? Do I live that way just at church? Do I live so that people can see Jesus living with me? Because He is the vine. And the thing is that when that vine is broken, when those branches are broken away from that, so in those areas, hey, listen, I live with Jesus in a lot of ways. So when I'm at work, people can see it. When I'm at my home, people can see it. But man, when I'm in a community or I'm driving, I'm a crazy person, and you wouldn't even see it. So that branch isn't attached to the vine. And when it's not attached to the vine, it can do whatever you want to do. But here's the thing. Eventually, it gets discarded and thrown away. At this time, it was actually burned up. And so what Jesus is saying is this, is that you need and I need to learn to abide together. But He wants to. He has a desire to. He wants to live with you in those decisions. If you're single and you've been looking for someone, you're like, oh, I just want to have that special someone. We talked about this last week. God's going to be the most important thing, and yet that's the one thing that's missing. Oh, I'll change that with him or her later. If that's the most important thing, why does the most important thing have to be taken out? It doesn't have to be. But it's got to remain attached to the vine. So Jesus is saying, live in such a way so that people can see in your walk, in your talk, in your mannerisms that guess what? I am with you and you are with me. And remaining means it stays for the long term. Not just in a moment here and there. Not just when I pull God out of a box and go, okay, God, I need you now. Oh, you did your work. Thanks. Boom, I'm going to push back. Remaining means it's long term. So what are some ways we can do that? Let's go to the next verse. This is from the Old Testament. This is from Isaiah. The main ways that we talk about remaining are obvious. And all these are important. I don't want to discount any of these. Reading your Bible. Would you say that's important? Just not if you agree that's important. Sure, that should be really important. Studying your Bible. Not just reading it, but actually studying it. Important? Absolutely. Prayer. Important. Meditation on it. Important? Absolutely. These are all taught about. These are all things that we should teach about. But what do we do beyond those? What are some steps that we can take? Well, the first thing we're going to take and we're going to talk about first is through Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet, and you can read words from the book of Isaiah. When you're reading it, you think that they're actually, you're reading about Jesus. And yet this was written 700 plus years before Jesus came. And when you read the word, you're like, oh my goodness, that's talking about Jesus. It's a prophetic book. This prophet was prophecy that all pointed to Jesus. And so he gives us a different area, which we're going to talk about here shortly. But as he is coming through here, he is having a conversation with God, and God is speaking through him, because in the Old Testament, that's what the prophets did. God spoke to the prophets spoke to other people. Whether or not anybody listened was up to them. If you ever read from the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah spoke in what is now modern-day Iraq for 40 years, and nobody listened. Who wants that job? None of us do. God, listen, you're telling me to tell us these people, I'm telling them, but nobody's listening. That was his lot in life. That's what God had him do. with Isaiah, he ended up having all these things written down to point to who Jesus was, and then it's up to us as to whether or not we live those words. So I'll give you a couple things that we can focus on here real quick, and then we'll dive into what this is. One thing that you can do within your life, we need to have people in our life that are Christians, and not just here within church. You need to have people that are going to be uplifting to you. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to your church, but there's someone that is focused on God's purpose in their life. And many times we don't know those people because we never talk about it. Because we never act in such a way at work, or we never act in such a cool in school where it says, wow, that person is different. That person lives in a way that's not the way that I normally see. Why is it that you act that way? And then we point to God. So we need to have a Christian person that's alongside of us so that we can focus more on that everyday walk. It makes us stronger. It's called discipleship. Second area, excuse me, music. How many people love to sing? How many people are like, I love to sing, but my voice is terrible? How many people are like, my voice is terrible and I don't really care? You're my favorite ones. Right? Because you just go along and you just, life's musical, it's great. We used to say about Becca all the times that she used to sing when she was at the dinner table. Life is musical. Don't stop that. She doesn't sing at the dinner table anymore. I kind of miss it once in a while. Music is a great way for us to just release things. And especially with, you can listen to Fish, there's so many different Christian stations today that you can listen to that you can have uplifting music. But singing is a great way to release that. Next thing, you ready? Here's one, it's going to be a tough one. How many people are part of social media? How many of you would say you're consumed by social media? Okay, for those that did not, lift up your hands. The second time after the first one, lying is a sin. And there's a good chance you're going to hell. I'm just kidding. No, this is an area, I'm touching on this, we're going to dive into these later, but just so you know, here's the thing you have to remember. Especially when it comes to social media. Our lives won't change. Listen to this. Our lives won't change until we change what we focus on and put our energy into. And if you're someone that has these really six-pack thumbs, you ever notice what I'm doing, especially the social media people, right? Scrolling up, boom, 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 with the texting. You have the six-pack thumbs. Where is it and what is it you're putting your energy into? Because our focus won't change unless what we value in life changes. Is that a huge value for you? That's your answer. Our values won't change unless our thinking changes. And our thinking won't change unless we start putting the right stuff into our brains in the first place. And if all you're getting is, why isn't this person responding back to me? And when are they getting back to me? And how come I only have, 200 likes and I need 300 likes? And what is that person doing? And that person went live. And all these things that just consume you, consume you, consume you. You find yourself in the same chair at the same time every day. People around you talking to you, and you're stuck like this. And it's an epidemic. It's an absolute epidemic. But until we make the choice that the garbage that comes in and the garbage goes out right away, it will continue to consume. Social networking is something that is stealing our joy, and it's stealing our peace, and it is stealing our fulfillment. Period. Until your thinking changes, it's not going to change until you put the right stuff in there. It's just not going to happen. Next thing, nature. Who gets out in nature just to get out in nature? It's a wonderful thing. This is a way that God can speak to you. The ladies that went out to Round Lake, there's not a whole lot out there. There was two groups that were out there. One was on the one side of the lake. They were the pigs. And then the ladies were on the other side of the group. I'm assuming they had a war between the two of them before they left. The winners left. They're all here today. That's good. They went out there just to be out there with God. You guys think I'm making that up. There was a whole ladies group called the Pigs that they were out there. Bethany met them all. I don't really understand it yet. I think they're lovers of bacon. I hope so. But both of these groups went out there just to be with God. But they went out there because they wanted to be with one another. And in nature, God will speak to you. Spend some time alone to realize how small you are, how big the story is, but at the same time, how you are a part of it. And then here's the last thing. That's what we're going to dive into today. Fasting. How many people here have fasted at some point in some time in their life? How many people have never fasted? Okay. Fasting is something that was done throughout the Old Testament. And it was a very important, not Christian, but it was a very important time that you would separate yourself to just be alone with God. But the more religious people got, the more the fasting became religious. And this happened just like any kind of ritual that people used to do. In the New Testament, Jesus talks about fasting and talks about the importance of it. The problem is, and what Isaiah starts in this first part, is that God's talking. He says, when people are fasting, it gets so focused on them that they don't focus on me. And so the idea behind fasting is for you to put yourself aside long enough so that you can recognize God. And the area that's the easiest to do that in is to starve yourself, not for super long periods of time, but take the food away so that you can fill it with something else. But here's what the issue was. This is what people would do, is that they would go out. I'll just give you a work example. So John and I work together. And I come in and I'm working and I'm doing my work, and then he says, hey man, can you help me with something? And I go, oh yeah, hold on a second. Okay, come over there. What does he need, John? What does he need? And he's going, dude, are you okay? You know, what's wrong with you? I'm just saying these words for you. You can say it if you want to, but dude, what's wrong with you? What's going on? I said, man, I'm in this fast thing right now. My preacher was talking about it, and I'm literally starving myself, so it's a little bit light right now. It's just a little bit tough on me. Okay, I'm okay. What can I help you? Wait. When did you start this fasting? Well, I'm going to do it the whole day. And so, you know, I've been doing it since this morning. What time is it now? Oh, it's 8:45 in the morning. Yeah, I've been doing it for almost 45 minutes. Okay, who's that about now? Unless you're 16 or 17 years old, you can go 45 minutes without a sandwich, right? But who did the fasting become about? It became about me. And that's what many times happened in the Old Testament. What it comes down to is when we do that, we're not obeying God's word. He wants us to focus upon fasting in a different way. So if my focus on fasting instead says, John says, hey man, can you come help me with this? Or, even better yet, I look over and see he's struggling. Hey John, there's something I can help you with? There's something you need some help with? Yeah, great. He gets up, it's been 45 minutes, I'm starting to feel my first hunger pain. Hey, you know, what's going on? What can I help you with? Oh yeah, hey, listen, you need to copy and paste that way. You can just do it here, boom, boom, there, good. Hey, anything else? Let me know. Great. 3 hours later, that pain kicks in again. Oh my goodness, I'm starting to feel it again. You look back at John. John's just typing away. That's okay. I'll go over. Hey, oh, you're early. Just want to make sure everything's good. Yeah, I'm good. You're good? You don't need help with anything? Yeah. You're starting to feel it. Like, oh, are you sure? Does anybody else need help right now? Because I just want to help you. And people are like, whoa, what's going on? You just want to help. Here's what the focus on fasting should be. When that pain kicks in, and it's going to kick in, if you haven't eaten in 3 hours, 4 hours, you missed breakfast accidentally, you didn't get lunch, you're going to get hungry at some point. And you make the choice as to what your next step is and how you react. In Isaiah, starting in verse 6, it says this, is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? In other words, for you to make that step and to go to help someone. I feel this pain now, I'm going to stop long and say, okay, God, you brought this pain to me. I put aside one meal today. Let me see who it is that needs help. Let me see who it is that needs an encouraging word. Let me see who it is who just needs someone to come up and say hi, or to give a hug, or say hello to. Let me get up and get moving, because obviously there's something that I need to be aware of. I may not be taking charge of it. Maybe it's holding open a door. Maybe it's grabbing someone's groceries. Maybe it's sitting with the kid in the study hall that always sits by themselves or at lunch and no one ever goes over to see. We sit down and, hey man, I see you're eating lunch. Yeah, why aren't you eating? I'm just taking the day off to eat. Just want to see how you're doing. No one's ever seen how him or her are doing. God said, is not this the kind of fasting I've chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Something is holding on to someone in their life, and something is holding on to something in your life. And fasting allows us to break those chains if we do it God's way. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer shelter when you see the naked to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? So it gives us his directions. These are the things that fasting should be about. And if your values are really poor, and if your schedule is really full, and if you don't really have the time for God, and you're not giving him your time, your treasures, and your talents, we're not going in God's way anyway. In this society, with this social networking, with all of the media, with all the blitzes and everything, and the answer is you and me, and you and me only. It has to be us to recognize God, because God hasn't changed. He didn't change then, He hasn't changed now. And your employer is only going to make you busier. And your coach is only going to make you do that much more. And your time, and whatever it might be, there's only going to be so many more Twitter feeds, so many more Snapchats, so many more stories, so many more. It's taking you away from the things that are most valuable in your life. So either we can make the change one step at a time, or eventually this world, this life is going to stop us long enough to make us realize what's important. Do we want to wait for that? Wait for sickness? Wait for death? Wait for a birth? And then realize, wow, that's what's really important. Wait for our husband or our wife to leave? Wait for us to be completely financially bankrupt? Wait for it. It's going to drop. God doesn't want that for us. He wants us to abide with Him daily. He wants us to live with Him daily. So if you want to find out what the area is that you most need to work on, you make a decision today. And you pick the day this week. I'm not saying you have to go 1 day, 1 week, 40 days, that kind of stuff. I'm saying start with one meal. And you skip that meal. Because here's what's going to happen. When you skip that meal, eventually those hunger pains are going to come up, and it's going to speak to you. Do you get irritable? Oh, I need to work on irritability. Do you get anxious? I need to work on my anxiety. Do you worry? Do you doubt? Do you fear? Do you ask questions you can't answer? Whatever it is that comes up, that's the thing that God wants to work with you on. And when He captures that moment with you, because see, we're doing this together. This fast is something I choose to do, but I'm doing this so God can speak to me. It's amazing how His Holy Spirit comes and warms us through this time, because He brings us joy, and He brings us peace, and He brings us fulfillment. He says, this is that area. Man, I'm irritable. Man, I'm angry. Man, I bark a lot. Man, I get ticked for reasons I don't know. Holy moly, am I anxious. I start asking the what if. I start wondering why they aren't inviting me, or why they don't care about me. I start wondering, am I pleasing everybody around me? And God says, boom, hunger pain. You're like, oh, I got to focus on God right now. But see, we need these things as markers to wake us up long enough so that we recognize God. And if we don't do it, our values are never going to change. If we don't schedule it, we will never see what God is trying to talk with us or talk to us. And if we don't do these things, the change will never take place in our life. Because once again, God hasn't changed. We have. Our society has changed. God didn't. Brochures. I would have had to ride a horse and a buggy. Right? Or I would have had to ride a horse. Or I would have had, whatever it might be. But here's the thing, at that time, everything was just nature. And you had this opportunity to recognize God. And the more the electricity turned up, and the lights turned up, and the internet turned up, and the Wi-Fi turned up, the more we turned away, we turned away. Do you want to recognize God in your life? Skip a meal. Plan it though. Don't be this is like yesterday. I missed a meal. And I was at Chandler's game, and every once in a while I deal with migraines. If you ever dealt with migraines are like, if you really struggle with them, I really feel for you, because they're really, really difficult. Last week when the quarterback for the Browns out with migraines, it was like, oh, I just had a migraine. If you deal with migraines, they'll stop you in your tracks. And so I know when the migraines are coming because I start seeing these auras around me. And at first they're kind of cool, and then all of a sudden I realize, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I've got about 30 minutes. And so it happened at the end of the game, and I was talking to this guy, and I turned to me and I said, I gotta go. And she's like, what are you talking about? You know, you haven't seen me in a day and a half, and here I am. I'm like, I know, but I gotta go. I'll text you in a second. I'm getting out of the car as fast as I can and use my speaker and saying, the migraines are coming, I gotta get home. And I made it home just in time. I hadn't eaten since the first thing in the morning. And the game, when they were gonna come in, ended up being 6.5 hours of games. So I hadn't eaten for like 11 hours. I hadn't eaten. And all the pain started coming in, and it started kicking in, and that's how it was affecting me. And so the last part of the way home, I didn't think I was going to make about the last 2 or 3 miles. I was sure I was going to have to pull over at Indiana. I'm parked in this ditch. If you could just stop by and pull me out of the car before you head home, and I'll just jump in the back kind of thing. But I stopped. And I prayed. And I prayed. And I prayed. And I didn't stop the car, but I stopped me. And God brought this peace over me. He brought a joy through it. He says, I got this. You're good to go. We'll get you all the way home. And there was this sense of fulfillment that, man, John, if you just stop long enough to recognize me all the time. This wasn't a purposeful fast. I wasn't being the holy guy. I wasn't being the religious guy. I literally, the stuff I've been studying the whole week, I was accidentally put into it because of choices I had made. But I learned something. And you will learn something. So, I'm going to challenge you. You pick a day this week to skip a meal. You pick a day this week. Now listen, students, you need to start your day off with breakfast. You need to have lunch in the day. The best meal for realistically for you to skip, especially growing, is that dinner meal. You can have something before you go to bed. But from lunch to like 6 or 7 p.m., take those hours and just skip it. And God's going to show you what it is you first need to work on. And then you give it to Him. And then a month later, you choose to do it again. And see what God has you work on. And a month later, you choose to do it again and see what you have to work on. And here's the thing. Every single time that pain comes up and it talks to you, you get to decide what to do with it. Will you abide with God? Will He remain in you? Will you use that opportunity to reach out or to care for someone else? Will you recognize Him within the moment? Because that's what fasting should bring to us. Not, hey, we're on a fast. God, what is it from the inside? Because I need to change starting here so that I can help others out here. Is it not to share your food with the hungry, to provide the poor wanderer shelter, when you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? Verse 8, then, that's the next thing that happens. Your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. See, this is the promise to it. This is what's going to happen from it. Your light will break forth like the dawn. If you've ever seen a sunrise, get up and be a part of nature. Man, it's dark outside, all of a sudden, boom, that sunlight comes over the first time. Some people reserve that for Easter. Pick a day and do that. How in the world does that happen? Because that's God showing up. Your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Your healing will quickly appear. I just recognized God, and I saw that light, and it's amazing what happened. That hunger pain went away. Is it coming back? Yeah. And I realized that, I was irritable. God doesn't want me irritable. I was anxious. God doesn't want me anxious. I was wondering. I thought all those things. He doesn't want it. His healing quickly appears. It's a promise from Him. He says, then your righteousness will go before you. In other words, I recognize God, and now, boom, it's right there before me. It's right there before me, and it's there before others. And the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. I got you. I got your back. God's not saying I'm on your back. It's God saying I have your back. Then, here's the next thing. You will call, and the Lord will answer, and you will cry for help, and He will say this, here am I. Will it come to you in an audible voice? Probably not. Probably not. But when you know His Word, those words will come back. His Word never comes back null and void. Never. Never. God, man, I need you right now just to calm my nerves. What am I even doing in this life? What is happening? Here am I. Hey, God, the things I've gone through and the struggles I have, why? I mean, I should be a Christian. Everything should be, an easy walk. No, Jesus said in this life you're going to have struggles. But you know what? Here am I. I'm with you. And there's a peace that comes over us. And there's a fulfillment that comes with that. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, whatever it is that's holding you down, whatever it is that's beating you up, whatever it is this world has you, however it is that it has you, if you do away with the yoke of oppression with the pointing finger and the malicious talk, how is he in here? If you do away with the yoke of oppression with the the pointing finger, the malicious talk, if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday sun. You can't help but shine and show God's glory because you're walking with Him. We got a lot of garbage coming in. We got to get the garbage out. We got a lot of things going on in our minds, going on in our hearts that we need to clean up. And the greatest thing behind it is Jesus said that if you'll remain in me, I will remain in you. If you live with me, I will live with you. I'll be there in every single negative thought, negative time, negative action. But there's things that you've got to clean and get away. And when that happens, you're going to shine and no one is even going to understand how. Here's the equations. Right now. Being plus doing equals joy. I'm a human being. God made me a human being. I need to be with Him at times. But I need to be a doer of His Word and not a hearer only. I need to pray. I need to study. I need to read His Word. But I need to take time to be with other Christians to lift up. I need to be with others that aren't Christians as well. I need to take the time to just sing once in a while. Lift my voice up to Him, no matter how bad or no matter how good. I need to spend time just out in nature, just recognize them. Taking a walk down the towpath, taking a walk in these parks that are set aside for us. Resting with Him below the stars. Hunting. It's coming up the hunting season. Great time to take your Bible with you and recognize God. I need to make the decision that I'm going to limit social media and social networking time. It's consuming us to the point where it's becoming a mental illness. It's becoming a mental illness. That's how much it's consuming us. Garbage in, garbage has to go out. And the way that I can do this is by choosing a time to fast and see what God brings up inside me during those moments so that I can hand them over to Him and do for others what He does for me. Being plus doing equals joy. Being plus doing equals peace. Being plus doing equals fulfillment. That's the equation that God gives us. As the praise team comes up, I pray that through this time we had, that you'll just take a moment right now and just close your eyes and bow your heads and just rest for a little bit. We have this quiet time. We're going to use this time. We have this music. We're going to take a look. You have to look at this person. You have to be honest with yourself. Where is it I need to make room for change? What are my values? What are the things that I need to get rid of because they're in the way of my values? How can I know how God will speak to me through that? What's a day this week that I can skip a meal, not to show everyone how great I am and how religious I am, but to put that aside, to see what rises up inside me during those moments that I can give to God. And then through it, that I can shine His light on others. Being plus doing equals joy. Being plus doing equals peace. Being plus doing equals fulfillment. Being plus doing equals love. Being plus doing equals God. Heavenly Father, as we take these next few minutes, Lord, as we close our eyes and just look to You, I know that when we look within, we know that there's areas we need to change. Lord, we want to be the best husband or wife we can be. We want to be the best dad. We want to be the best grandparent, best coach, best mentor. Lord, there's all these areas we want to be the best before others. But God, until we put You in those moments, we're never going to get there. Your Son came and said to us, remain in Him and He will remain with us. He said, abide with Him. He said, live with Him and He will live with us. God, help us to live in such a way so that we can't help but to shine Your light. God, challenge us that this week, whatever day it is, Wednesday, that's my toughest day, Friday, that's a difficult time too, whatever it might be, I'm going to take one meal, 6 hours away, 8 hours away, 10 hours away, to see what rises inside me that I need to give to You, to to see the things that I need to put away, to see the things that are taking up my schedule so that I'm not abiding with you. And then, Lord, help me to have the strength to be honest enough to give those to you so that you can work through those things with me and that I can see